I think the only thing you should focus on is customers and customers and customers. I don't think anything else matters. And if you solve a genuine problem for them, you will start making money, the investors will come to you, everything will start falling into place as long as you're just trying to provide value to the right people.
Hi, and welcome back to Founder Real Talk by Wisdom Partners. I'm your host, Josh Broward, CEO of Wisdom Partners, and today our guest is Ashley Parekh. She is the CEO of Syntex, which is creating a digital onboarding portal for small banks and credit unions, making it easier for their customers to engage their digital tools. So, Ashley, we're really glad to have you here today. And part of what we're about with Founder Real Talk is getting beyond the cheers and hoo-ahs and being a founder is so amazing. I'm so excited. Please give me your money. And getting into a little bit more of the real world of being a founder, because it's lonely, it's hard, it is amazing, but that doesn't make it easy. So
Yeah.
today, I just would love to hear more about your journey and some of the highs and lows.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm very grateful to be here. Happy to share any insight I can.
Great, thank you. So first, help us understand in more depth, what problem are you trying to solve with Syntex?
Essentially, the main problem we're trying to solve is smaller banks and credit unions. They take way too long to onboard a new client because everything is done manually over email. And a lot of these smaller businesses don't understand exactly what information is required from them to be entered onto their onboarding system. So first they have to manually walk them through it. And then internally on the bank side, there are a lot of approvals and handoffs that come into play. So onboarding can take anywhere from in really good banks, it takes 3 to 5 days. Smaller banks, it easily can take like a couple weeks. And right now they're competing with these newer fintechs like Brex, Row, and Mercury, where this small business can onboard themselves within like 10 minutes. So the standards have become super high and everything is done manually right now. So we're essentially enabling them to digitalize the onboarding so they can close the deal and increase their deposits ASAP.
Okay, so helping smaller banks and credit unions that may have more local appeal because you can go talk to an actual person, interact in a digital landscape closer to a Brex or a Mercury.
Exactly.
Cool. Why does this problem in particular resonate with you?
So I started off my career in banking. So I went to Georgetown where I studied finance. And then I used to work at Deutsche Bank and then I worked at SVB. And in SVB, I personally saw like how long it took to collect the documents from the client to do all the due diligence. And then the amount of time it took to get all the approvals done. So I was in the credit solutions team. I had to take those documents, give it to the compliance officer, and the compliance officer, if something was wrong in those documents, I had to give it back to my team. And then the team would constantly be in touch with the client to get the right information. Because without the right information, the process cannot move along. So I saw this on the lending side and I started talking to other bankers to see if they had similar problems. And they had a similar problem on the account opening side because that's where the deposits come into play. And every bank's goal is to increase their deposits year over year. So because it took too long to onboard these new customers, they would lose them and then ultimately lose on the deposits.
And so if I'm hearing you right, you're saying you just saw this problem from within the banking industry.
Exactly.
Interesting. What's a win that you guys have had over the past year?
I think the past year has been like a really long year because we've tried out a lot of different products, trying to figure out like where is that one space where we can provide the most value. We recently got a really big win. And the year has just started, but we've picked up great momentum. And in 10 days, we're flying out to a really big fintech conference happening in London, where we got a scholarship to demo on stage and show our product in front of hundreds of people. So that's going to be a huge opportunity for us, especially as an early stage startup. And all these conferences have banks, credit unions, leaders from top financial institutions coming. So I think it'll be a great place to network and meet new people, especially since we'll have our own booth and we're presenting on stage. So I think that was a great win for us, especially since it's not even been a month since the new year started, so very excited.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What is one thing that you have learned the hard way? We, our company name is Wisdom Partners, and we like to say wisdom is failure redeemed.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes most of the time, the most important lessons we learn through struggle and failure. So I wonder if you'd be willing to share what's something you learned, some wisdom you earned through mistakes or errors.
Yeah, I think I made a lot of mistakes and I think I learned a lot of things. But if I had to pick one, so I want to tell you a story about one of the earlier products we were building, which was the Trading Copilot. So we were building a consumer product, which was an investment research platform, and our launch went viral on Twitter. So we hit like more than 1 million views. We got 3,000 users within a month, and we were doing really well. People started telling us, "You've picked up great momentum. You should try to raise a round." And at that point, we didn't really understand what it means to fundraise. And I just started talking to investors, trying to raise a round and stopped focusing on the users or the product.
Mm.
So I basically spent a month like trying to talk to investors, and essentially I hadn't thought through and I went about fundraising the very wrong way. I only cold emailed. I did not leverage my network at all because I thought I know what I'm doing. I just need to go talk to investors and they're going to give me money. And then 1 month in, I think I realized that nothing matters except the business. And I think you want to get to a stage where you are in a stage where you can take out that time to fundraise. And I had not gotten to that stage yet. I think a lot of people think once you go viral, it means that your problem is validated, but that's actually not true because later on we realized that we won't be able to monetize if we continue with this business idea, even though we had thousands of users using it. So I think it's all about, I think what makes a business are your customers. If you don't have a customer, you don't have a business. And I see a lot of founders, and this also used to be me thinking that the goal of a startup is to raise a round from from any VC and then get like a good valuation and you're done. But I actually think none of that matters if you don't have customers. I think the only thing you should focus on is customers and customers and customers. I don't think anything else matters. And if you solve a genuine problem for them, you will start making money, the investors will come to you, everything will start falling into place as long as you're just trying to provide value to the right people.
That's so important. And on one hand, it sounds so simple, but it's actually really hard.
Yeah. It's really hard, especially because because I live in San Francisco, you kind of hear every day that this startup raised 5 million round, this startup raised a 25 million round from like these really established investors. And then start feeling FOMO and you start feeling like, oh, am I lagging? Am I lacking behind? But then since I am so integrated into the network now, I know so many founders who have raised rounds and are still in pivot hell, who still don't have a customer. So
Mm.
I think a lot of people can show hype on social media, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everything is going well for them internally. So I think that's important to remember that Twitter, LinkedIn, and other social media platforms, they can make you feel like you're lacking behind and you're not doing as well. But I think as long as you're focusing on your customers and like providing value, like you're doing the right thing and it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing.
You said two things that I just want to pull the thread on a little bit. If I put parts of it together, you realized users are not the same thing as customers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's in many ways that is a shift for the tech ecosystem, because it used to be, like when Facebook and Instagram were coming out, it was okay, great, you have a billion users, but how are you going to monetize it? And people are like, we don't care. We'll just figure that out later. And so they sold for huge valuations. But nowadays, the investment landscape is a little tighter, and investors want to really know how is this an actual business, not just a thing that people want to use.
Exactly.
So it sounds like the problem when you have users but not customers is then you have to pay for those users. Like they're running queries on your platform, and so it becomes in some ways it's almost a negative. It can be.
Yes. So I think there are lots of different ways to do this. I do believe that it's okay if you think that you can figure out how to make money later on, as long as that business model actually makes sense. But I think a lot of people get delusional that, I can get these many users and then I'll figure out monetization later. I just think 10, 15 years ago, there was already so much competition, but there were still unsolved problems. But I think right now, tech has become so democratized that there are people making apps to solve their own problems, So I think that's why you need to figure out how to make money right now, because there are so many solutions available that if you if you don't ask them to pay right now, there's no guarantee that you're going to make money later. And I
Mm.
think money is also like validation that you're solving an important enough problem that people are willing to put their money in it. So at some point, it doesn't even matter how much money you're making. It's just that, is that person willing to put down their credit card to use your solution? Like, does it matter enough to them that they'd be willing to pay? I feel like in B2B, it's still a little different because they're not paying out of their own pocket, they're paying out of the company's account. But in consumer is an incredibly difficult space to make money in, because including me, like, I don't want to pay money for a single app. But when it comes to my business, I will be way more willing to spend money on my business. So
Mhm.
I think it's a very like tricky way. And there's always trial and error. Everybody's journey looks different, but I think your end goal should be you need to make money as soon as possible.
Yeah. And I think you're right. That has, in some ways or in many ways, that has changed in the last 10 or 15 years. The path to profitability needs to be a lot shorter.
Yes, exactly.
What So the other thing I wanted to ask about is you mentioned pivot hell, and you guys have gone through a few pivots. What do you think has been the key for you to escape pivot hell?
Honestly, I don't know if we've escaped it, but I will say pivots get easier the more you do them.
Mm.
So in the beginning, pivot hell actually felt like hell, where every week or every couple months we would like shift industries, shift entire products, shift entire user bases, and then it kept feeling like we're starting from scratch. And then I think the important thing for us was to narrow down the space we want to be in. Like, which space are we passionate about? And more than the space, which people are we passionate about? And then we were very clear that we wanted to be in the fintech space. And because I've been a banker before and I've worked with bankers, I am super passionate about working with those people because I truly understand them. So either you have your problem narrowed down or you have your ICP narrowed down. But if you don't know your problem or your ICP, it can be extremely tricky. So at least for us, I had a few hypotheses ready and I knew like these are the kind of people I want to work for, because I think you need to be obsessed about your customers. So even if you don't know the problem, you should know this is exactly what I want to work with and I'm going to find a way to provide value to them. So
Mm.
then pivot hell got easier because then we started making soft pivots. So essentially our learnings would start compounding. So every time we would pivot, it was like one data point is leading us to another data point instead of starting from scratch. So every time we pivoted, it actually felt like a step forward. Like, okay, we're starting to go like a little closer to the actual problem. So that's like you said, pulling on a string. So it's like you find a data point, you start pulling on the string, you find a deeper and deeper and deeper problem. Because we are in such a competitive market right now that all the obvious problems are already taken. Like the problem that comes first to your mind is definitely not the problem. And a lot of the times, like the customer themselves don't know what the problem is. So you're literally like investigating like a case, like let's find out what is the actual problem. And it takes time. You need patience. And I think patience is like the key to Pivotel, and just try to compound your learnings. Try to understand, like, why am I pivoting? Does this pivot make sense? Where can this lead me to? So I think once we understood that, it became way easier.
That's a great explanation. Thank you.
Yeah.
What has been one of the most effective or best investments you've made in your own development?
Yeah, I would say the biggest investment I've made for myself is just doing a startup. I think just investing in my own capabilities, because I've only done a full-time job for 6 months, and 6 months was enough for me to realize that my growth is going to start plateauing, and I want to grow at like an incredibly high speed. So I need to make an investment for myself. Like right now, we are entirely bootstrapped. So it is me investing in myself. There's nobody else investing in me. And I think I know what I'm capable of. And I think a lot of people know that they're capable of, but sometimes they're just hesitant to act on it. And I think the best thing you can do for yourself is just go and do something about it. Because I think most people, if you ask most people in the valley about, what makes a founder, the one thing they'll say is bias to action, that you just have to take an action, like regardless of whatever it is that you want to do. So I think the best investment I made was genuinely like taking a year and figuring things out, trying to pursue my passion. And, a lot of people told me, like, you're too young to be selling in finance, like, you don't have the right connections. Maybe you should try and get some experience first, etc., etc. But I think only you know when the time is right. And there's a lot of noise in this world. And at the end of the day, like, invest in yourself, invest in what you think you want to do and whatever brings you fulfillment. Because yes, the journey is like so hard, and it's probably the hardest and the most loneliest thing I've done, but there's nothing else I would rather be doing. So I'm very happy, even though it's extremely hard.
Yeah. That's one of the ironies of being a founder is the mixture of suffering and joy.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
it's so hard. I kind of hate it, except I also love it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like most days you're telling yourself, like, why am I doing this to myself? But oh my God, I love this so much. I love that I'm making myself miserable, and it's
Yeah.
like only a founder can understand that contradiction.
Yeah. There's a book called The Second Mountain. I think it's by a New York Times columnist named David Brooks, and he
Okay.
says, especially, he's mostly writing for people like sort of after midlife
Hmm.
or after a major crisis. And he says the unique thing about the second half of life is you get to choose your suffering. But I think for founders, it's kind of we choose it early often. Not all founders are pre midlife. Plenty of founders are midlife and beyond. But for many young founders, they just decided this is what I want to suffer for. Like, I
Yeah.
would rather suffer in this way than suffer in a corporate job.
Exactly. And I don't even see it as suffering. I think I recently read a blog that the more things you do that are hard, the more successful you're gonna be, because that just means you're gonna learn quickly. And I just spoke to another person today who started a company after being in the banking industry for like 20 plus years. So I don't think it's ever too early or it's ever too late. I think whenever you start feeling bored or you start feeling like the work you're doing is not providing value or like not bringing you fulfillment, I think it's important to like step out of your comfort zone. I think the most dangerous thing about a corporate job is how comfortable it makes you,
Mm.
and it doesn't push you as much. Obviously, like, it has the smartest people who are doing amazing work, but I know so many people who do feel like there is so much more they can give to the world, and they are just, stuck. And I think the second you start feeling stuck is when you should try to get out. And one thing I love about the Valley is that it rewards failure. I
Mm.
think people view failure as a bad thing, but I think once you change your perspective and look at failure as like a learning opportunity, like everything changes. Because for me, like, the more times I fail, the more proud I am of myself. That, oh, I failed 10 times last month. Like, that's amazing. Let's try to fail more. Because the more you fail, like, the closer you are to actually succeeding. And I think that's what most people miss. Most people think, I'm going to do a startup and I'm going to raise a round in 2 months and I'm going to meet like Sam Altman. Like,
Yeah.
that's not how it works.
Yeah, you are correct. People talk about adding zeros to a check. I think you can add some zeros to the months as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. What's one of the biggest challenges you're trying to solve right now?
For me, the biggest challenge right now is go-to-market strategy. So essentially, I'm trying to sell to banks and credit unions, which are basically the hardest sector to sell to,
Yeah.
especially as a female in finance who's a 23-year-old. So I have chosen an extremely difficult path. Not that it was already easy, so I've just made it harder for myself. But I think I'm just trying to figure out like how do I speak the language of my customers so that they would be able to see the value I'm trying to provide. Because I am very confident that the product we are building can bring a lot of value to them. I just think I need to learn how to make them see that. And I think going to these conferences is going to help a lot. But I think because of all the AI tools and all the outreach mechanisms like cold messaging and cold emailing is basically dead. There are going to be a few people who respond to you, and God bless those people because only we know how much we appreciate them. But I think you need to start being creative now in terms of how you meet people. There are only so many warm connections. So I think you should try to take every opportunity. Like one person I spoke to was telling us that she doesn't even buy a conference ticket. She just shows up to the conferences and roams around in the lobby and just meets people. So I think you just need to be gutsy, be a little shameless, stop thinking about what other people think about. One of my other friends, she waits in a sweet dream during lunchtime so that she can meet like the corporate people who go to Sweet Green to get lunch. And then she starts talking to them in line, and she actually got 3 design partners out of that. So I think, yeah, like I feel like the best founders I know are like shameless, gutsy, at the same time respectful, and really trying to provide value. So I think just be creative and go out there.
Great. So if there's someone listening to this and they think, wow, Ashley's really gutsy and I like what she's trying to do, how can they help you? Who are you trying to meet?
Honestly, I'm very open to meeting everyone because I truly believe that there's something to be learned from every single person you talk to. So whether you're a founder or you're trying to be a founder or you just want to brainstorm, I'm happy to meet you. Of course, if you're a banker or a credit union, like I'm always available for you. Like even if you just want to have a conversation, want to learn about what we're building. But essentially, if it's anybody trying to have a productive intellectual conversation, like I'm always happy to meet. And I'm a strong believer in paying it forward because there are like a lot of people who have helped me along this journey. And, I still have a long way to go. Like, I've just begun. So, if there's any way I can help anyone, like, I always respond to cold emails, I always respond to cold messages on LinkedIn. As long as it's genuine and somebody asking for help or advice, like, I always try to do that. But yeah, like, especially for people in finance, I'm always willing to talk.
So let's narrow it down a little bit. Okay, somebody works at a bank or they work at a credit union. How do people know if that's the right kind of person to introduce to you? Like what sort of position title or responsibility area would be the right match for you?
So I would love to talk to any person who works in commercial lending. So any type of account opening or lending job that they do for other businesses. It can either be a relationship manager, it can be a compliance officer, it can be a credit officer, anybody who deals with the client or deals with approving any sort of account or loan. I would be more than happy to talk to you.
Great. Thanks, Ashley. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you so
So,
much. This was amazing.
well, great. So for anybody listening out there, connect Ashley with your lending officers at the banks and credit unions. And if you are stuck in pivot hell and want to get out of it, or if you have gotten out and now you realize, now I have to build this thing, I have to build this company so we can ride this beast that we unleashed, then reach out to us. We would love to connect and support you in your journey.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thanks for having me. Meet you.